Today I'm going to show you how transverse all-wheel drive systems work. So here I've got a transaxle. Now the engine would normally sit over here. Now transaxles will typically power the front axles first because they are always mechanically linked together. However, when you need a little bit of rear wheel traction, we have this transfer case which is going to take some of that power from the front wheels and transfer it over to the rear wheels through a drive shaft. And then that transaxle is going to hook up to this drive shaft, which is going to run the length of the vehicle to the back wheels. And then it comes to the back here where that drive shaft is going to bolt up to. We've got our powertrain control section over here, and then the rear differential where our left axle and right axle are going to plug into to feed those wheels. Just going to remove the axles here. Then I'll remove the right side axle over here. Notice how this axle actually goes through the transfer case and then into the transmission. And then I can pull off this transfer case just like that. Now the output of the CVT variator is going to turn this counter gear, and that in turn is going to turn the differential. However, splined to the output of this differential is the transfer case gear, so therefore output torque can now be split between the differential for the front wheels inside of here and the rear wheels over here through the transfer case. And I'll remove the transfer case. Now many transversely mounted vehicles like this are front wheel drive based primarily. You could just completely eliminate that transfer case and you just have a front wheel drive car. As a result, I consider all-wheel drive systems as slip and grip style systems where it only turns on for the moment that you need extra traction or stability in inclement weather. And the reason for that is this: a rear differential assembly, and in between the two we have a clutch, and when that's on, the output of the transmission is now going to be directly spinning the rear wheels as well as the front wheels. Start by taking off these T45s and the final drive for the rear. Go. Let's check out that final drive. It's so tiny. So here's the rear final drive. We've got our pinion gear. This is our dog gear that's going to rotate. To get our wheel speed difference between the two, we've got our little spider gears on the inside there. Further prove my theory, this is my front differential, which is going to be doing full-time duty. Despite being able to push 50% to the rear, this is the rear differential. It's so tiny. Same thing is true at the front. This is a much thicker, bigger axle for the front wheel compared to the one for the rear wheel. All right, let's take off this front piece here. And before I open this, I want to tell you guys a secret. I towed this Pathfinder home with my Sienna on a tow dolly. The front wheel's locked up and the rear wheel's on the ground. That means there's a huge wheel speed difference between the front and the rear, so let's see if I burnt up this clutch. So if I lock the output, I can show you that I can still turn the input with ease, and that's how I was able to tow this home. You obviously got to make sure it's disconnected as well. Let's pull this apart. All right. So what came out here is the wave washer. You can see it's all wonky. Now this shaft here is what's going to turn the pinion on the inside here for your output. Also, when you're doing your fluid changes, the fill port is over here and the drain is on the cover over here with this magnet that has some slop, and that's sort of your line just below the seal of where the oil should be. There's a snap ring in there to take the shaft out, but moreover there's a seal here, which means that the gear oil from this side never goes to the clutch on this side. So I was just trying to test how this works here. As I rotate this, it's nice and free. When I apply 12 volts to it, you'll see that it's not free anymore, and that's that electromagnet kicking in. Now this is still supposed to rotate because the wires sit against the housing. It's the clutch that's going to engage. Oh, there's a bearing here. Okay. Here's the electromagnet. As you can tell, I've been beating on this thing to try and get it out. There's nothing you can grip on to take it out, but I'm not going to let this defeat me. I want to see the clutch. Okay, I'm going to try a puller. Finally. Okay, got the sleeve off. Bearing is inside of there. This is the seal. That's the bearing that was giving me so much trouble. There's still grease on there. So far I don't see how this thing opens up, so I'm just going to go ahead and open it up myself. So it appears this is where these two come apart. There is actually a little rubber seal sticking out here. Okay, I think we broke the water here. I can see there's oil dripping out of this thing, so it's a self-contained unit. I got my son's shirt here. I'm just going to go ahead and wipe up my work area from all this oil. So I figure there's 3 of these points around here that this thing's probably threaded on, and my cuts aren't going to do much, so I'm going to go ahead and try to cut it open even further and maybe rotate it out if I can. I got to rotate it slightly to either side, but I'm kind of losing patience on this. So I'm just cutting and hammering away, and that reveals the thread inside of here. Grinding aluminum is not good for you. Alright, so I chopped off enough threads to where I can actually wind this thing off. Pull the top off of this. Let's take these clutch pieces out of here. Here's our center gear. So there's 6 little balls inside of there, and these are the ball rams. Okay, those are the little balls. can see we've got the indentations for the balls. Again, we have a spring washer. Then we have the all-wheel drive clutch. So I ran in and grabbed my wife's dress that I've used before. I'm just going to flip that over to the clean side. Put that down on this table. Now this all-wheel drive coupler has three main components. We've got our electromagnet, and that sits inside of the steel housing. Now on the back of that we have a small clutch that's going to engage a ball ramp system, and that in turn is going to engage your all-wheel drive clutch. So here's how this works. We've got our input coming from the drive shaft flanges over here. That's going to rotate this entire housing. Inside of here we have a wet clutch, which is similar to an automatic transmission clutch. The output of that is going to be splined to the pinion gear, which is what's going to turn the rear differential when you want to power the rear wheel. Now in order to transfer power, you need to activate this clutch by squishing it together. Then your input and output will be locked and you can transfer power to the rear wheels. Now instead of using a hydraulic clutch like an automatic transmission, we're going to fire up this electromagnet here. Now through the principle of magnetism, this giant hunk of steel, which is sitting on top of this clutch, is going to be attracted to the electromagnet inside of there and basically activate this clutch as it squishes it together. Now this little clutch contains the steel bands, which are going to be splined to the input, always rotating, and the output of that is going to be splined to this ball ramp system over here. This guy sits here, has got a bearing on it, and it can rotate. Therefore, when you squish this clutch together, it tries to lock the input from the drive shaft to this ball ramp, and it rotates. Now as I place these balls here, they kind of sit in a little valley over here. They want to return to the center where it's the lowest spot. So the clutch friction discs are going to be locked to this ball ramp. I'm going to take the other half of the ball ramp, which has a similar valley design. This is now splined to the output of the coupler, and I'm going to place that on top. Okay, I had to run in and grab my son's underwear, and that's because these balls are not rolling freely. I have to wipe this down properly. Now there is a spring washer on there for a little bit of pre-tension, but once you lock up that electromagnetic clutch, you now have this locked to the housing, and therefore this is going to try to rotate. Now if you look closely, you'll see that this is also trying to rise up because it's using that ball ramp system as it tries to rotate. The balls are moving from their lowest spot to their highest spot, which is going to create that pushing force, which is going to engage this clutch. If you can start taking this clutch pieces apart here, and just come out like this. Well, take a look at this clutch. You'll see it's definitely used, but it does not smell or appear to be burnt out. The steel bands over here are going to be splined to the input coming from the drive shaft, and the friction discs are splined to the output over here. Now when it's not engaged, this clutch blades can move relative to each other inside of the fluid and not burn up, but when that ball ramp pushes down on it, it's going to squish together, locking our input to our output to go to the final drive. This is a relatively small clutch, and this is all that has to take up that relative motion between our front and our rear wheels, especially when you're taking a corner, and that's why this is more of a part-time on-demand all-wheel drive system as opposed to some real-time off-road stuff. Now the other thing is efficiency. By only running in two-wheel drive mode, you're going to save a lot of fuel compared to engaging this clutch and also sending the power to the four wheels. Now this Pathfinder is marketed with four-wheel drive. Even on the dashboard switch it says 4x4, and that's where things get a little bit controversial. You see, in my opinion, four-wheel drive means you've got a designated low gear for off-roading. You've also got a physical lock between the front and rear axles. Now in this car you could put it in two-wheel drive to save fuel economy and it won't engage that clutch. If you put it in automatic, it'll sense the wheel speed difference between the front and rear wheels when you have slippage and momentarily engage this clutch. However, the four-wheel lock mode on this thing is going to manually engage the electromagnet to lock up this clutch. However, if the vehicle is taking a turn, it should be smart enough to disengage this clutch so you don't have binding in the driveline. Moreover, you shouldn't have it locked all the time because you're going to burn out this electromagnet. This vehicle will measure the current in this electromagnet to know if it's starting to heat up and disengage four-wheel drive. There's no designated fluid temperature sensor or anything. In my opinion, I think this Pathfinder is just a very simple part-time all-wheel drive system that will get you out of inclement weather. But in reality, it's a 4,000-pound CVT vehicle with a tow button. Next up, we'll take a look at the transfer case. This is the output side that goes to the drive shaft. You need a big socket for that. A newer battery. And my gun, let's see if it'll get it off. I'm going to try my oil pan removal tool here. See if I can pull this flange out with this bolt. Okay, next I'm going to remove these 14. Okay, let's get this transfer case seal off. Here we go. Now this is the side where the passenger axle pokes through. Note, it does not interfere with any of the fluid or gears inside of there. I'm going to go ahead and remove some of these 14s. Also to note, this is your fill and this is the drain for transfer fluid case drain. So we got the 12 mil now. Alright, this is the back wall with the seal. So as you see, this transfer case is very simple. Power comes in from the final drive. The passenger side axle here goes through it completely and does not interact with any of the oil or seals or gears inside of that transfer case. This transfer case just turns the power 90 degrees so it can go down the drive shaft to power the rear wheel. Just like the differential, this spins around in its own gear oil. So make sure you change that out periodically because these gears can wear. Now when you lock up that clutch in the rear differential, in this application it gives you an even 50-50 torque split between the front and the rear wheels, and that's determined by the gear ratio in the transfer case. In other vehicles, manufacturers can play with the transfer case gearing to give you a more rear biased or a front biased setup depending on the type of vehicle. Furthermore, all-wheel drive systems that have a center differential here are typically full-time and allow a bias between the front or the rear, or it can be adjusted. If you want to learn more about those types of all-wheel drive systems, check my link above. And that's a look at this transverse part-time all-wheel drive system in this Nissan Pathfinder. This is the most common type of all-wheel drive systems you'd find in modern sedans and crossover vehicles on the road today, and the reason is because of efficiency. This type of system is meant to give you stability and security while you're driving, although they market it as it's some kind of really capable off-road vehicle. It's like your brother over-exaggerating when he goes to your mom to complain you stole the ice cream and you just took a lick. Now as far as longevity, this clutch doesn't really wear out that often because you don't really engage it that often. The front wheels are doing most of the heavy lifting. It's only if you've got a slippage then the rear wheels are going to engage. Now I want you to tell me in the comment section down below, what do you think of these Mommy Mobile all-wheel drive systems, and subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one.